Hello and welcome to another video. Do apologise that I've not made one for a while, but I've been working and it's taken a lot of my time up. Anyway, I want to address some reviews that various people have done on the Sigma 24-70 2.8 Art HSM OS new Sigma art lens that's come out. Now, quite a few people have done reviews and told you that the lens is pretty good. However, my research in terms of the lens itself, and I was contemplating buying this lens because I did want a 24-70 2.8 lens. And to be honest with you, I was really looking forward to getting it because it was going to be really good quality. Now, in a lot of the research I've done, because I didn't think I needed to buy the lens to determine how good it is, so basically I based my opinion and my conclusion from other people's reviews, such as Ken Rockworth, Dustin Abbott, who does reviews on YouTube, and Lens Rentals, and there's other reviews as well as personal reviews that people have done on the lens. And I thought I would break down my thoughts and conclusion of how good I think the lens is. First of all, the badge of art series they put on this lens is a disappointment because it's nowhere near their prime new vision line lenses they brought out, such as the 1.8 or the 30. I think it's 35mm, 1.4. Anyway, they're art lenses, they're prime lenses, and they're very sharp, corner to corner, centre to edge. So they brought out this new zoom lens, and I thought it was going to be better than the Canon version. Obviously the Canon is a good lens, the 24-70 2.8 with no image stabilisation. I think Canon really need to bring out a new version with image stabilisation. So the reason I wanted to get the Sigma one is because it had image stabilisation, and obviously any of you videographers out there, filmmakers, would be really interested in this particular lens because obviously it's a 2.8 aperture, so it lets a lot of light in. However, my conclusion is at 24mm in the corners it is quite bad. A reviewer such as Dustin Abbott has done a review of the lens, and you can have a look at his review. Just do a search for the Sigma 24-70 2.8 art lens. I'm sure it will come up. However, he stops short of slating the lens, and for me I think it's a terrible lens, because if you're going to get a wide angle zoom lens that goes to medium telephoto, it has to be sharp. I don't see the point of calling it an art lens when it's not sharp at 24mm. I have seen some examples that Dustin Abbott has done himself, and my assessment of the results he was coming up with, he was basically just saying, oh, it's not great in the corners, but at 50mm it gets better and it gets sharper, but then it sort of loses its sharpness at 70mm. So basically at the wide angle end of that particular lens it's bad, at the telephoto end it's quite bad, but in between it's okay. To me, how can you call that an art lens? It is terrible. You can look at the examples if you want to, but my analysis, and it's not just my analysis, this is basically the whole internet, reviewers, forum writers, personal reviewers, people who've bought the lens have said the same thing. It's bad at 24mm. Has quite a bit of barrel distortion. The actual positives you can actually take from the lens is there's not a lot of chromatic aberration. So that's a good thing, that's a plus, so that's something good. Between about 30mm to about 55mm, it's quite sharp. It's really good. However, if you're going to do portraiture photography at 70mm, that's where you're going to be using it. You're going to be probably doing portraiture or model pictures, you know, that sort of thing, weddings. At 70mm, it's quite bad, to be honest. The corners are quite soft. So I just wanted to do this video just to give you my conclusion of what I think about the lens. Now, to back up that information, I decided to actually look up B&H, which everyone knows is a brilliant company. You know, they sell lenses, they give good product reviews, they're honest, and there's lots of good technical support. So if you ever got a problem, you go to B&H and they'll sort your problem out. But I just wanted to read out this review so you guys out there know it's not just me slating the lens. You know, basically the information I'm giving you is, you know, what is reality, you know, is fact. Anyway, I'll just read out this review. This is just a sample out of many reviewers out there. You know, personal reviews. People have bought the lens and tested it and thought, oh, it's not as good as I thought it should be. Incidentally, a lens, if you can't afford the Canon 24-70, I'll come to price in a moment, but I just want to read this out. Let me read this and make your mind up. I pre-ordered this lens less than a minute after it was available and received it fairly quickly, hoping that it was the lens I was hoping for. The last 4 years I have had a Sigma 35mm Art on my Canon 6D, and it never comes off my camera basically, and I love it so much. So this guy obviously loves his art lens. When I got this lens, I took it out for landscape photos and events. First thing that hit me was the girth of the lens. Obviously it's a big lens, just keep that in mind, and it's quite heavy. Think 70 to 200mm, 2.8 IS in width, so it's heavy, and it is a hefty lens, easily upsetting the balance of any sort of full frame body, but not a big deal if the lens is amazing. Sharpness is poor, 24mm and 70mm. Compared to my 24-105 f4, which is the Canon lens, IS Mark 1, it is significantly softer at any aperture up to f5.6. After that, sharpness increases linearly up to f8, at which point it is tack sharp. Focusing was on point for the lens right out of the box. I've had issues with Sigma lenses, focusing problems, but this lens performed well. Focusing from infinity did result in poorer focusing and performance. Then focusing, but not terrible. Chromatic aberration and distortion are very well controlled. Optical stabilization is not 4 stops. Well, to be honest with you, it's 3 stops in reality. My low light shots were consistently sharp at 2.6 stops. So even with a 1 stop aperture, my 24-105 can still take pictures in lower light. Then the lens, handheld, still subject. One of the reasons I wanted the lens was for street photography. One of the quirks was that even at 1/100th of a second or 1/60th of a second, I was getting blurry shots. So it's a bit strange at 2.8 why you would be getting blurry shots. I mounted the camera to a tripod, but I could not replicate the issues. I don't know if the OS was occasionally overcompensating for handheld motion. The slower shutter speeds allowed for it to show after a week with the lens. I found that the lens rental had tested 10 copies of the lens and found exactly what I had found out in my week of testing. So basically, Lens Rentals have got 10 copies of this lens, right, and found or come to the same conclusion. So basically, after testing, the lens is not very sharp compared to other 24 to 70mm out there, and that the optical stabilisation was not up to the 4 stops that was claimed. To quote them, I'd probably feel better about it if it didn't have art on the label. I had to return my copy of this lens due to the sheer fact that there is better glass out there for similar prices. Right, obviously I've just taken what he said word for word. He's not written it great, but the gist of it is it's not a brilliant lens. Now, he talks about price. I want to talk about price. Now, the Sigma lens is retailing for £1,400. Work out what it is in dollars, but 1,400 quid is a lot of money. The Canon lens, the UK version of it, is £1,650. Now, the thing is, you can buy a Canon non-IS version, obviously, 24 to 70 2.8. You can actually buy it off eBay, right, for £1,200. That's £200 cheaper than the Sigma lens. Now, I have noted that the Tamron G2 lens 24 to 70 2.8 has been released, but it's not quite available yet. Now, that was priced at £1,500 on Amazon. However, I've seen it at a reduced price at £1,250. So I think Sigma are overpricing this lens, suggesting it's a brilliant lens when it's not. Now, based on the reviews I've read, I will not be buying this lens to test out. There's no point. These guys have tested it. Lens Rentals have tested 10 copies. What's the point? Justin Abbott has done a video. He doesn't slate the actual poorness of the lens, but it's obvious from his video. I don't know. I get the impression that perhaps he's been too nice to Sigma. Maybe he's getting some sort of kickback. I don't know. Or maybe he doesn't want to upset Sigma so they won't send him any more lenses. That's a possibility. But obviously from his review, as well as Ken Rockworth, not a lot of people like his reviews because they think he doesn't know what he's talking about. But even Ken has said the lens is quite poor. So just to round up this video about the new Sigma 24 to 70 Art lens it's a disappointment for me because I was really interested in this lens. Personally, I would probably steer you towards the new Canon IS 24 to 70 f4 lens, which has a macro facility which gives you about 70% of life size if you're interested in macro. But apart from that, it's a good walk around lens. An f4 is only half the light that 2.8 offers. So, you know, if you're not in a dimly lit situation, maybe a dark church, you might need the 2.8 lens, but in general, it's doubtful you'll need that 2.8 aperture. So consider that as an alternative. Obviously, the new Tamron lens is coming out. We'll find out what or how good that lens is in the future. I am interested to find out how good that lens is. Hope I didn't ramble too long for this particular video, but I just wanted to discuss my disappointment with the Art lens that Sigma has brought out. And to be honest, Sigma, I expected more from you because I was interested in this lens and I was looking forward to it. I was telling everyone I was going to get this lens when it came out, and then when I found out about the price, so first of all, the price, £1,400 for a third party lens, it's expensive, really expensive for something that's nowhere near what a Canon L lens is in quality. Nowhere near. Now, you guys probably know about the Sigma 24 to 105 f4 lens. That lens, right, it's an art lens with image stabilization, so it competes with the Canon's 24 to 105. It's sharp, pin sharp, corner to corner, any aperture from f4 to f22. It is sharp. So you would think the new 24 to 70 2.8 is going to be just as good, if not better. But this lens shouldn't even be called an art lens. It's that bad. So thank you for watching. See you next time, and you know, keep taking those photos. Bye bye. Right, here is a summary of the Sigma lens. At 24mm, it's not very good because in the corners they're not very sharp at 2.8. And if you're going to buy a 2.8 lens, it has to be pretty decent, I think. In terms of distortion, it's average for this particular lens. Chromatic aberration, there's not a lot of it really, to be honest with you. It's quite a lot less than, say, the Canon version of this lens. So basically kudos to Sigma for getting that reduced, because on their lenses typically do have quite a bit of chromatic aberration in them. There is a bit of distortion, as I mentioned. 70mm is not great for portraitures. It's a bit on the soft side, if I'm honest with you, so it's quite poor. In terms of its weather sealing, it's quite good. You know, you get a rubber gasket on the back, it's weather sealed at the front, so it's quite decent. The filter thread is 82mm, so it's a decent size, so it might be a bit expensive to put one on there. And price, £1,400. It's a lot of money. You can buy a Canon 24 to 70 2.8 lens, right? Grey import for £1,200. So think about that. You could buy a grey import for less. The Tamron G2, which is coming out shortly, it was retailing on Amazon's website at £1,500, but I have seen it advertised in a local camera shop for £1,250, so you might be able to pick it up even cheaper than the Sigma. Image stabilization. You're getting 3 stops of image stabilization. Sigma claim it's 4, but when this is actually tested, Lens Rentals did that, they determined that it is a 3-stop image stabilization. And if I'm honest with you, a lot of reviewers have said the image stabilization is quite poor, because they have gone to as low as 15th, 20th, 60th a second and still got camera shake, which is a bit bizarre, you know, with your image stabilization being so good these days. So my summary of this lens is it's poor at the wide angle, it's poor at the telephoto, decent in the middle of the zoom range, it's quite heavy, it is weather sealed, there is a bit of distortion, but no more so than, say, the Canon and the Tamrons. But for me, the price is a big issue with this lens. You know, it's not a Canon or a Nikon lens, and yet they've priced it up there near what they cost. So I do think that Sigma need to rethink their pricing structure on this lens. For me, I won't buy this lens because it's not the greatest quality. But I hope you found this video and overview useful, and thank you.